What is up, guys? Welcome back to the channel. Today we have the most requested video on my channel via the comments, and that is a Grand Race meta update. This is not a meta line. Let's get to the cars, dude. Let's go. All right, so this video is actually going to be one of my shorter Grand Race meta updates, and that's because there's not really a lot that has changed here in Season 7. There's a few things that have changed in Street 2 mostly, and then a couple of options for racing. But for the most part, the Grand Race meta is the same as Season 6. So let me talk through the changes first, then we'll go into some viable options and the meta for the rest of the classes that has remained unchanged since like almost Season 5 or even before that. So let's start with Street 2. So in Street 2, there's a couple of cars that you need to take note of, and that is the Mazda RX-7 Red Fury Edition. This was a Summit exclusive reward. If you don't have it, you can't get it until it comes into the Prestige shop. The other option is the Ferrari GTO. That's the car that's on the thumbnail of the video. It's the one I was driving in the beginning here. It's actually a really nice car to drive. Both the GTO and the RX-7 are insanely good, and they could be your default pick for basically all of the Street 2 routes. Now, if you want to get into the nitty gritty of Street 2, there are a couple of cars that really do well on specific types of routes. And the number one car is going to be the F40. The F40 does really well on technical routes that require some guttering. Now, these cars actually gutter very well. The RX-7 and the GTO both have very good handling, very good oversteering, very good guttering. You can absolutely keep up with an F40. It's not like the F40 is going to blow them out of the water. However, the F40 just has a little bit of an edge on technical routes, just a little bit. It's got very good NOS power, and it really does go faster if you're able to take advantage of the car itself. The other specialty car is going to be the Lamborghini Huracan. Lamborghini Huracan is going to be the top speed car for the class. If you have an all highway route, the Huracan is the best car if you have another Huracan with you. So if you're solo, it does get hard to keep that car at top speed because the car doesn't have very good power at the top end of its gears. It needs slipstream, it needs drag bump, it needs NOS. If you have that perfect scenario, if you're racing with a friend, if someone else in the lobby happens to be in a Huracan, you're going to do really well with that one on the highways. Outside of that, the previous meta was the GR Supra or the Ryujin Edition Supra. I've dropped that down into the viable category because I feel like the car is good and it doesn't deserve to be dropped all the way because it actually does perform fairly similarly to the RX-7 and the GTO. I think the RX-7 and the GTO are just a little bit better. And if I had to pick one, I would pick the RX-7. To me, it's a cooler car. It feels nicer to drive. In my opinion, it oversteers more. And that really isn't everyone's opinion. In fact, a lot of the sweats are using the GTO, and some are using the RX-7, and some are using the F50. And speaking of the F50, we have to talk about that as well. The F50 is a good car in its own right as well. However, it's very specific on the types of routes that you need to take it on. It has a slightly better top speed. It does pretty well in most scenarios, but it doesn't really gutter that well. So if you're going to have to use it for a lot of gutters, it's just not as good as the F40, the GTO, and the RX-7. All right, that kind of rounds it out for Street 2. Let me show you the full Street 2 meta and my viable options. Keep in mind, the ones that are viable, they're actually really good cars. You can definitely use them, and it should be basically just like a solid alternative for you. Other than that, you can just follow the top of the list there. All right, let's move on to racing. So racing at the very, very top, I don't think has changed. It's the T50S at the top. The F40 LM, though, is very close. Like, so close that I can't even decide personally if I like it better simply because I'm an F40 fan and I want to drive it more. So there's that. I don't really know if it's actually better. I think the T50, my gut feeling says the T50 is actually a better car. It feels like it has just a little bit more NOS power, a little bit more kick, a little bit more acceleration. It turns, it feels lighter. The T50 just feels like a very light car. The F40 kind of feels a little heavy, a little sluggish, but it has very good pace. I would definitely put up a fight against the T50 driver in F40 if the skill gap wasn't super big. You know, if it's me and Simji, it doesn't really matter what car he's in, he's gonna put a gap on me. But if it's someone that's really kind of close to my skill level, we can actually go for a nice fight between the F40 and the T50. That being said, the FXXK is no slouch. Like, it's really, really good. It just understeers like slightly, man. The F40 feels a little bit better. The FXXK just understeers, and it's just enough to where, like, the car is very good. It's super fast. It has very good acceleration, extremely good NOS power, and it kind of feels light on its toes. However, it just understeers like just enough to where it makes it, you know, slightly worse than the F40. That being said, here's the full racing meta plus the viable options for you to use. All right, let's talk about Street 1. Nothing has changed. Here's the full meta. You've got the Porsche 911 RS 2.7 at the very top. You've got the Audi RS2 Avant and the Mach-E as your specialty cars. The Mach-E particularly is very useful in this season. There's quite a bit of Street 1 starts. And I'm not saying that you use the Mach-E on every single Street 1 start, but if you're paying attention to the route and you see a bunch of gutter turns in that first stint in Street 1, you know it's a Mach-E route. That's where this car excels. It excels in acceleration, and that's what you want to do. So when acceleration is important, the Mach-E is the choice, and there's a lot of those routes here in Season 7. In Drift, nothing has changed, just the Unicorn like always. In Hypercar, nothing has changed. Alpha GP, Motocross, Rally Raid, Rally, Monster, and Plane, nothing really has changed. The last tip I do want to give you, though, is that in Rally Raid, the majority of the routes, the vast majority of the routes so far this season have required the 959. Now, there are other routes that the Tacoma really excels in, and you're going to use that. However, there's really no need for the BMW Z4 unless you really like driving that over the 959. The 959 is going to be like the top of the list specifically to these Season 7 routes. Now, obviously, we can update that as time goes on, but for this season so far, this is what we've got. Now, obviously, nothing has changed in Monster and Plane. It's still the Silverado and the P51 Mustang. So there you go. And the reason I don't put any pro settings in these videos is because there's just too many cars to list. I mean, I've got almost 10 viable options in the main classes. I've got like 2 or 3 cars in the other class. We're talking about like 70, 80 cars, and I'm just not going to put pro settings on the screen for all of them. That being said, the pro settings are on my website. It's militiagamingco.com. You can go there and take a look. Go up to Motorfest tools at the top, and then I have lots of Motorfest tools there to help you out, but the top one should be the pro settings. That takes you straight to the pro settings app. You got all these different categories, and you'll find the car that you're looking for. That's the best place to find my pro settings because that's what updates. I update that every single time I change a car. It gets put in there and it gets updated. So there you go. Thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope this helps you guys, and I will catch you on the next one. Trigger out.